G'day guys, Chris Dorry here. Today I'm going to talk about why there's no excuse for your club not to pick up a key defender this off-season if you need one, because there's a heap of options on the table, as you'll soon see. So to take you through the list, and also to give a bit of insight into why I'm so big on both state league recruitment, but also opposition list identification. So in terms of former AFL listed players, well, there's two guys that actually got delisted last off-season. So you've got Blake Slinslog, who has been a beast in the waffle, be it first half of the season in defence, or whether it's been the second half of the season as a key forward. But then you've also got Sam Skinner. So he had those years for Brisbane, and then really this year in having the season in the sandful, and he interestingly did the opposite to Slinslog, where he started forward, was all right forward, was still taking his marks and hitting the scoreboard here and there and having some big games. But since he's moved to be a key defender, really sort of in the latter half of the season, really, he's just been terrific. So, and I'll go through some of those numbers in a moment. So, if I was to say quick, who are the two guys I would be really going for first? Well, I'd be going for Slenslog and Skinner. I think they're probably the two best value and really highest probability picks who can be there really for your team for a long time and be plug and play best 22. So I think there's huge value there, so I would be in a rush to sign them. So in terms of young and out of contract guys, so you've got Jake Riccardi. I've been talking about him quite a bit for Greater Western Sydney, but he's a really good footballer and he's someone where he's had that exponential rate of improvement, as with a Slenslog for that matter. So with that in mind, he's that sort of beast of that high flying sort of strong contested marks. So having those features to his game, look, even though he's been mostly a key forward, he can swing back. Jackson Callow for Hawthorn, he was picked up mid-season draft. If they're not going to re-sign him, I'd be very quick to get his signature. So however I need to, I'd be pretty keen to lock him in. And again, he can be another of those key forward, key backs, which is very valuable. You've got Biggie Newen for Richmond, so again, has yet to be signed, so we'll have to wait and see there, but there's still a great deal of upside with Biggie, where he's that nearing sort of ruck height sort of key defender, but he just reads the game so well that he could be another sort of Alir caliber sort of key defender, so there's quite a bit of scope there. And then you've got Nathan Kruger for Geelong, where he's like those opportunities, but there is quite a bit of scope still and quite a bit of interest given his athleticism. And he's played key forward as well, but I think realistically, if he's going to make it at AFL level, it's probably in defence. So I will mention his name given that. And then you've got your out of contract players where there's still the decision to be made. So Robbie Tarrant, Phil Davis, Magic Door. So with Robbie Tarrant, he's come back the second half of the season. Not necessarily looking at his best, but I think there's still the scope that he could play another 1, maybe 2 years. I'd speculate there. And then with a Phil Davis, so he was actually dropped last week for Greater Western Sydney. So, and as a former co-captain, well, if you want veteran leadership, hey, this is a guy who can provide that. And as with Tarrant, I still look at Davis as a really solid key defender. So if whether I'm in my premiership window, whether I want to develop youth, they're guys where if they're free to pick up and I can get them for whether it's a nothing pick, whether it's as a delisted free agent, I would be very quick to snap them up. And then you've got Jack Daw. So Melbourne picked him up during, I think it was the preseason supplemental period. But yeah, he's been playing mostly in the ruck. So in the VFL, obviously there. So I've liked him as a key defender in the past. And look, we haven't really seen him for quite a while as a key defender, but if I was to recruit him, I would really be looking in terms of physically how's he going, and I'd consider him strongly as a key defender. So that's if Melbourne don't want to bring him back, and I suspect they probably do cut ties there, unless they just really want him for depth, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there as well. So those three are question marks, but again, guys, I'd be, again, pretty happy to recruit. So some who have been delisted, so Levi Casbolt. So obviously he's been a strong contested marking key forward for a long time, can sort of pinch hit through the ruck for periods, and look, is fine in that role, but not outstanding, I would say. But where I do see potential is as a key defender, and with the success of obviously Liam Jones translating into defence and you've obviously got Jacob Wiedering for Carlton. Well, there just hasn't been those opportunities or the need for him to switch back. So, but with his contested marking gifts, I do think there is that scope with Casbolt. So I am interested to see whether it's a 1-year deal or 2-year deal, how he would go in defence, because I do think he could make that transition and really surprise quite a few people, as with a Liam Jones. He might take a bit longer to get to that standard, but given Jones is already there. But I think you could have a similar sort of transformation, and I'm fully aware of Casbolt's age. He's a 1990 kid, so it is a bit late, many would say, but I'd still take the chance if I needed an immediate key defender. I think he could actually do that personally. So, but judgment call, a lot of people would disagree, and that's completely fine. But understanding how valuable that intercept marking, contested marking is behind the ball, I do believe Casbolt would definitely be an asset. With a Daniel Talia, look, he's had his injury issues, they're the problems, but if there's any modicum of belief that he can get back, then I would, in a heartbeat, obviously pick him up. So, established player, veteran, has a lot of experience. He's a best 22 player on really any team if he's healthy. So, I'd take him on that basis firstly, but then secondly, you're getting that veteran experience. So, if you've got a young guy developing, just as we've seen with Jordan Butts for Adelaide, well, having a Daniel Talia there, that's invaluable, whether he's healthy or not to play. So, given that, that's a really good use of a list position, irrespective of whether he gets healthy. So I'd definitely take a chance on Talia just on a 1-year deal, just to see, can he be healthy? What's he going to be like? And then maybe you can give him a second year if it looks like there's a chance that he could get back and play at a reasonable level. But he's still pretty keen to play on. So yeah, we'll have to see. And he was obviously shattered to be cut by Adelaide, obviously there. So Sean McKernan, look, he's a low conviction name to list here, but nonetheless, I wanted to list him anyway. So, been delisted again, understandably, but he's someone where, again, he's actually a really good contested mark, good height, athletically is perfectly fine even at his age. So, given that, I really think there is an opportunity where if you're desperate and all these other names for some reason you can't get your hands on, and McKernan, I think, could even be adequate as a key defender, and I could see him transitioning into that role. So, you've got the height, he reads the game fine, strong contested marks. So, I do think there is some level of scope there. So, again, not a name I'd immediately discount. And then you've obviously got your retired names. So, you've got Cale Hooker, fantastic first half of the season forward, firstly, slowed down in the second half, understandably. And look, age obviously works against him, but yeah, look, he played his best footy as a key defender. So, yeah, look, if I'm after an immediate key defender, I'd be giving Cale Hooker a call and say, hey, how's your body? How you feeling? Do you want to go around again? Do you reckon you've got another season in you? And if yes, then again, here's someone I'd be pretty keen and eager to talk to and sort of try out and see if he's worth bringing back into the fold. But yeah, his play first half of the season, to his credit, really strong as a key forward. He was averaging 2 goals a game for a long time there, and only really in more recent rounds has dropped below that. So, yeah, he's not completely done, I wouldn't say. You've got Dave Asprey. So, look, there was some decline this season, but in his last few games, he's actually played better footy. So, yeah, with a David Asprey again, as a plug and play, well, he's still a solid get and better than what quite a few teams still have running around. So, again, it's another case of, given he's now sort of, you could say, retired, well, he's someone where absolutely I'd be willing to, I guess, give him a call and see if he's interested in playing for another, certainly 1 year, and then see after that, maybe there's a 1-year option if he reaches a certain number of games or whatever criteria as that sort of contract trigger. So, yeah, you've got those sort of options there too. And then you've got Jake Carlisle. So he's had his injury issues in recent years, fair enough, but when he's last been playing, look, to me, he's still playing good footy, still really good interceptor. You don't forget how to read the ball behind when you're in defence. So, yeah, look, I would still consider Carlisle, but of course it comes down to 1, motivation, and 2, is his body right? So you obviously do the due diligence and check to see that. And look, if it doesn't work out that his body isn't right, well, fair enough. You can easily get one of these other names. But again, one I'd certainly be doing my due diligence on nonetheless. And then, of course, you've got Jack Homsch. So, He's one where probably, I'd say probably going back to roughly 2013, 2014, he was a good piece for Port Adelaide. And then sort of from there, look, he wasn't intercepting enough, taking enough contested grabs. So for me, really sort of lost that viability there. But nonetheless, you've got all these names where they've either sort of been forced into retirement, delisted, they're out of contract and still waiting. You've got young guys out of contract and quite promising at that. And then you've got these former AFL listed guys who are running around in the state leagues. So the Waffle and Sandful respectively for Slenslog and Skinner. So there's a heap of options out there and they're really impressive to me. And just to run through their numbers quickly to give you a very quick feel as to their games. So Slenslog, you've got a 20-year-old. He had the 2 years at Geelong sort of as that Category B rookie, but you're looking at a guy who's 2 meters, strongly built, but moves very well, very agile. So you've got that in his profile. And then, of course, here you've got the stats. So, he's been leading the Waffle for most of the season. I'd imagine he's still leading the Waffle in marks taken per game and for overall for the season. So he's obviously having a terrific season, finding a heap of the ball. When he's been playing forward, as you can see, he's been hitting the scoreboard. You're looking at a really good player there. And also when he's been asked to play a few minutes through the ruck, I know it's not indicated in the hit-out numbers, but he's also been very competitive through there as well. So you do have that option too. And then moving on from Slenslog. So you've got Sam Skinner. So, of course, very short time at Brisbane. No significant contribution. 1 game, 2 games. So barely got an opportunity. So you're looking at someone who hasn't had a lot of AFL experience. And of course, Slenslog never got the chance. So looking at his profile, so again, you're looking at that basically ruck height key defender just about. So almost 2 meters, very strong at 100 kilos. He wins his one-on-ones. And like a Slenslog, just reads it so well. Strong contested mark. And on the Sandful website, well, you can see all the contested mark numbers. That's terrific. Last 2 weeks, 4 contested marks, 4 contested marks, 12 marks, 11 marks. So fantastic. In really strong form and really growing into that role as a key defender. So, that's why I'm really high on Skinner. And of course, looking at his age, he is a bit older. So you're looking at a solid 24-year-old. But again, as with Slenslog, plug and play. Just put him straight into your team and that's that. So, a very appealing prospect to me in that regard. So, Jackson Callow, look, he was ripping it up in the Sandful at league level earlier in the season, leading the comp in contested marks before he was drafted. So, you've got all that. Since joining Hawthorn, he's really taken a back seat to Emerson Jecker, who's really maintained that position for Box Hill in the VFL as that sort of number 1 option inside 50. But again, look, he's hitting the scoreboard a little bit. He's taking his marks. He's finding the footy. And he's sort of growing more accustomed to playing for the Box Hill. But he's really played a team-first style all throughout. So, he's a really appealing player. And with how strong he is one-on-one, how strong of a contested mark he is, look, I think he'd translate beautifully to playing in defence. So, although he's a very capable sort of key forward and he does all the right things, brings it to ground, you name it, crushes the packs. So he really sort of provides a contest and is a genuine target inside 50. Nonetheless, I think he could be that Brian Lake style key defender, I guess you could say. Maybe not quite Jeremy McGovern-esque, but I really like how he is one-on-one. So that's where I'm sort of getting at with the Callow. Biggie Newen, loved him in his draft year. I still do see quite a bit of scope to play. So obviously last season it was hard. There was no VFL season, so didn't really get the chance to develop. This year, well, again, limited games. So it's hard with a guy who's as raw as a Biggie Newen to really develop. So, if Richmond make him available or if they even better delist him from an opposition perspective, well, hey, he'd be someone I'd pick up in a hurry. Disposal numbers, middle of the road, taking some marks here and there. So, look, that's fine. But he's someone where it's just seeing his play compared to an Aliir at the same age and stage, particularly in terms of when they got drafted. Well, Biggie had quite a bit of separation for mine as to where Aliir was in terms of that sort of reader of the ball, that intercept mark. So you've got a great deal of options with a Biggie. So, he's someone I'd pick up in a heartbeat. Particularly if I can get him as a rookie, that's absolutely sensational. Jake Riccardi, his start to the season was ridiculous. If you're a fantasy player, check this out. 184 points, 170 points. Staggering. So first game as a key defender. This is the only game he's played as a key defender. And what did he do? 40 disposals, 19 marks. He just made an absolute joke out of the VFL. So, and look, in fairness, for those who are at the game, the reports were he played a pretty unaccountable game. But if you're doing this, I don't care how unaccountable you are. It's just, yeah, that's huge. So obviously he was reading it incredibly well, as he does as a forward, mind you, and really taking his marks and intercept marks. So, yeah, that's what I value more than anything in a key defender. So it would just be about if you're going to translate him to that role, which I absolutely would. I'd be really comfortable doing so. It would just be sort of giving him that time to sort of know when to peel off, just sort of giving him that time to develop in the role, which sadly Greater Western Sydney haven't given him that sort of chance to do, which is quite a shame. So the next week they put him forward, and of course what happens? 8 goals, 4 behinds, 24 disposals, 14 marks. Pretty casual, dominant display. But look, his AFL play hasn't been great, and sort of after those first 2 games hasn't been much, but I really do think he'd be fairly disgruntled just having these sort of games early in the season, getting flicked around from preparing to play back and whoops, he's forward again. I just think that would be a really frustrating thing. So with key position players, you really want to say, hey, this is the position you're going to play. This is where we're going to develop you. This is who you are. Because if you're moving them around all the time, they just don't develop that continuity, and it doesn't allow them to develop either, or develop that confidence in particular. So with Riccardi, I'd make a pretty solid decision. This is where you're going to play and develop, and this is where I see you in my best 22 being a piece. So yeah, I'd be very comfortable taking a Jake Riccardi, and if I can get him cheap for a nothing late pick, absolute sensational value there. So you've got a Nathan Kruger, so you're looking at a 22-year-old. So, and look, he's a solid height, very athletic. 2 games, hasn't really done a lot, but look, that's fine. But he's someone where he just needs those opportunities. Until he gets those, we don't know how good he is. So he had the 2 VFL games this year. Look, they're fine stats, but there is quite a lot of AFL interest. I personally wouldn't be picking him over, say, a Jake Riccardi, but there could be similar, maybe even a little bit more demand for a Kruger. So that's nonetheless something to watch. So Robbie Tarrant, so we've got all these 100+ mark seasons, so playing great footy. Last season, obviously, we had the shortened season, shorter length games. Interestingly, despite his early career, I guess, fragility, if you like, and how prone he was to injuries, he really suddenly out of nowhere became quite a durable and consistent player. So that's credit to Robbie for really turning that around and having the success he has. But yeah, this season, obviously, just the 9 games. But yeah, a few of the recent games, you're looking at 9 marks, 9 marks, 9 marks. I'd pick that up any day of the week if you're getting those sort of returns from a Robbie. And again, you've got the veteran experience. You've got someone where he's not just there to contribute to your best 22, which he'd be a best 22 player for a team that needs a key defender, certainly. But if you've got a young guy developing, like let's say you pick up a Biggie Newen as an example, well, you could have someone like that developing under a Robbie Tarrant for 1 or 2 years, and that's sensational for them. You really need those, I guess, more experienced players who can really, I guess, impart their knowledge, wisdom, learnings on these younger guys to fast track their development and enable them to maximize their career outcomes. So, yeah, Robbie Tarrant, I'd jump on that, absolutely. And same story with a Phil Davis. So he had those years where he had those high mark years, incredible shutdown, key defender, 10 games, not the best return this year, but yeah, it's just interesting sort of seeing him get dropped last week, and it doesn't feel like, a bit like with even a Stephen Cornelio for that matter, it's just Davis feels a little bit out of favour there. So it seems like maybe the Giants are probably going a bit more for youth, and Sam Taylor's clearly the Giants' #1 key defender now. He's surpassed Phil Davis, so that's a given. But yeah, look, again, if I need a key defender and I want someone immediate, someone who can impart their veteran leadership on a young guy, help them develop, Phil Davis is someone to get. So yeah, again, opportunity. So And if I'm a club, like let's take a Western Bulldogs, for example, well, what I'd do, I'd grab one of these younger guys, be it a Slenslog, a Skinner, whether it's a Jackson Callow, Biggie Newen, whoever it is, I'd want at least one of those guys, maybe two in their situation. Because ultimately the Dogs don't have a great sort of group of key defenders. But then I'd pair him with one of these sort of veteran guys. So maybe it's a Robbie Tarrant or a Phil Davis as an example. So you've got all those sorts of names where absolutely they could really provide quite a good amount of value to a team. And these guys are budget pickups. You don't need to spend for them. That's what's so valuable about them. And you've got guys where a lot of the players I'm mentioning now, they should be walk-up best 22 players. If you've got a team like the Bulldogs where other than an Alex Keith, you're looking pretty poor for key defenders, well, these are the sort of guys you want to be looking at because they're going to improve your best 22. And you're not paying to do it, which is phenomenal. It's not going to take a big salary cap hit with any of these names. So that's really valuable. So with a Majak Dor, of course, no games this season. And as I was mentioning before, if you look through the stats, well, he's been playing through the ruck as the hit-out numbers indicate. So kicked one goal. It's just nothing to sort of be too excited by. But again, with a Majak, his best play came as a key defender. So if I'm recruiting him, and that's what I said this time last year, if you're recruiting Majak, get him as a key defender. And then he can potentially play his best footy. But again, you do the physicals, see where he's at. But and again, another I'd certainly consider and do my due diligence on, if nothing else. And you've got a Levi Casbolt. So obviously he's had a down season this year. So only the 14 contested marks. With a Casbolt, he can get 2 contested marks a game in his sleep, usually. So having a season like this, you know it's a down season, but it's not the first time he's had this sort of season. So you can look at what he did in 2018. That was nothing all that incredible, but then obviously comes back in 2019, has a better season. And I can't help but suspect with a Casbolt that if he was given one more year, that he could actually have a renaissance season and have another sort of good shot at being a productive piece. So I'm still quite high on a Casbolt. And the fact that a Gold Coast are looking at him, I think that's a really good move. Although I'd, again, personally be looking at him more as a key defender. So I think it's almost a case of wrong player, wrong team, wrong position. So, and again, a Bulldogs, put him behind the ball. I think a Casbolt could be terrific. So, yeah, you've got a lot of those. And then Daniel Talia. So, yeah, it's just obviously he's sort of had his health issues, just trying to get back on track. But yeah, he's keen to play on. He's motivated. A motivated veteran, they have renaissance seasons. Yeah, they have their down seasons and they have their injuries. And that's something I would live with, where those injuries are the opportunities for the younger guys to get a taste. And then they can go back to the sort of lower levels once the likes of a Daniel Talia is back. And then they can, I guess, have that sort of, I guess, level up in terms of that experience and knowing what the standard is and knowing where they need to get to. And I think that's a valuable thing. So I wouldn't be wasting list positions on just late picks from the junior ranks. I'd really be looking at a lot of these veterans because they're the ones that are going to enable the young guys to develop into great long-term pieces and ultimately improve the culture, improve the player development of everyone. And then here we've got McKernan. So he's had his games where he's hit the scoreboard. Look, that's fine. It's all well and good. I've never cared for McKernan as a key forward or a ruck. I think key defence is his one shot, and I'd give him at least consideration for a tryout. So if I had, say, my VFL team, I'd say to McKernan, hey, we're going to sign you for our VFL team. If you impress, we might even pick you up in the mid-season draft potentially as a key defence solution for our team. So that's sort of how I deal with McKernan. There's better options, and I've gone through this list, and I prefer a lot of the other guys. But with McKernan, I've still got that sort of sense of intrigue as to, well, if he switched back, would he be a little bit better? And I think he could be adequate, honestly. But that's sort of where I'd sort of weight that. So obviously this season, 4 games for St Kilda. Nothing special. 2 goals, 8 marks. It's nothing to sort of worry about or get excited by. So Cale Hooker, as I've already mentioned, so you've got 18 games, 33 goals. But if you go down to what he was doing in the first half of the season, well, this is terrific stuff. But obviously in more recent weeks, well, we've had this real sort of drop-off in sort of how he's going. So Yeah, and particularly sort of this period, round 14 onwards, no more than a goal a game. So look, that is a reduction there. But yeah, I'd still be pretty happy with Kale Hooker on my team. And again, like he can play forward, and he was going really well as a key forward for Essendon, interestingly, which I wasn't sort of expecting him at this age and stage to be able to do. So I was thinking almost end of last year, oh, he's pretty close to the end. But looking at how he's gone this year, I think he could go around another year if he wanted, or if a team sort of came to him. And like, again, it could be a Western Bulldogs where it's a case of they need another good key defender. So, and if you put in a hooker, maybe that frees up Keith to be a bit more of an interceptor, perhaps. So, you've got quite a few options there. And look, Hooker's a great interceptor behind the ball as well, obviously with all those high sort of mark seasons. And with how the game's played currently, well, it's more of those high intercept mark guys. They're more valuable than ever before. So, like for me, someone like a Liam Jones is the most underrated key defender in the game. Just winning his one-on-ones consistently at a rate higher than anyone, but then also leading the comp in intercept marks, and he's up there for contested marks for key defenders. So those sorts of guys are such assets for your team. And then, of course, you've got a David Asprey. So, look, his production's down a bit, but look, per 22 games, that's over 100 marks. So, look, I think that's still pretty reasonable there. And again, if you go down recent weeks, 8 marks, 9 marks, that's an improvement of where he sort of was earlier in the year. So, look, I'd still be open to sort of letting him go round again, but maybe not ahead of a lot of the other players I've been talking about, as he's certainly not who he was in 2019 and earlier. But look, nonetheless, I still think he could be an adequate piece for another year or two. So again, that sort of Bulldogs-like situation is an upgrade on what they've got. Jake Carlisle, and as you can see, so he had the 13 games in 2020, but in a season where he had shortened games, 73 marks, that's terrific. And he had his 100-plus sort of mark year seasons, so that's an indication right away, like without going any deeper. And you can see the contested marks as well. They're great numbers. So he's a baller, great height. He's very capable, just reads it so well behind the ball. So, yeah, with the Carlisle, it's just, again, is he motivated? Is he healthy? Can he go? If he can, again, I still like him. So, but it really depends. So Homsch, and it's just to do the due diligence here. Homsch is the last name I'd actually pick out of all these guys. But you do your due diligence nonetheless now that he's been cut. So if you look at marks, this is his VFL numbers, of course. His highest for this season is 6, so that's pretty poor. Disposals, no more than 14. So he's obviously not finding it, he's not intercepting. So immediately, I'm just not at all interested. And again, same story at AFL level. So it was 2014, 2015. They were his good seasons for Port. So quite a while ago. But since then, look, he hasn't really delivered. 2016, look, that's fine given it's 10 games. But yeah, sort of after that, it's just, yeah, he just hasn't been up to the sort of necessary standard for a key defender. So, yeah, it is someone where, look, I'd pick him behind the others. I wouldn't sort of give him another shot. So I think that's a wrap on his career. Thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, let me know in the comments section below who would be the key defender you'd like to see your club target. Really, for me, I'd be taking a number of those guys if I could, and it really just depends on what do I need. Do I need a veteran to help a young guy develop who I'm really high conviction on, or do I just need a key defender because I just don't have any good young guys developing through? So who you pick really depends on your situation. If I wanted someone immediate, the pick would be pretty obvious. I'd go Slinslog first, given his age. That's really appealing. But a Sam Skinner would be a close second, who's perhaps even more advanced, potentially. But obviously, he's those 4 years older. So that's also what you're sort of keeping in mind, or 3 or 4 years older. So, but yeah, obviously, Jake Riccardi, love him. Callow, love him. Biggie Newen, same. They're guys I'd pick up in a heartbeat if I want some younger guys. So there's a heap of options there. And the veterans, you could take any of them, and I'd just be stoked to add any of them onto my list if I've got some young guy coming through who I really want to have sort of develop over the long run. So yeah, if you enjoyed my video, make sure you give me a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.